Barakata Yahweh, Barakata Yahushai, Barakata Yahweh, Barakata Yahushai, Barakata Yahweh, Barakata Yahushai, Kolam La, Adonai Yahweh, Bashem, Shamalak Yahushai, Bashem Kakadash, the honors to the apostles and elders, great millstone, peace, citation, and hope for all that. Shalom. And I'll soon think of a title for this video, but as this article states on the title, it says Boston college student's girlfriend pleads guilty over his suicide. And it says Alexander Urtula left and In Young Yu, that's the one on the right, dated for 18 months before his death. A former Boston college student has pleaded guilty to involuntary manslaughter in connection to the suicide of her boyfriend 2 years ago. In Young Yu, 23, was given a 2.5-year suspended jail term and told she would not be allowed to profit from the case that shocked America. Her boyfriend, Alexander Urtula, 22 years old, jumped to his death from a garage hours before his graduation on the 20th of May, 2019. Prosecutors say Yu was abusive towards Mr. Urtula, urging him to kill himself. Yu was sentenced on Thursday in Boston, Suffolk County Superior Court, Massachusetts. And that's her name, by the way, Yu. You know, it's kind of weird how these Asians name themselves. Says her prison term is suspended for 10 years, meaning that she can avoid being jailed if she complies with her probation terms. They include mandatory mental health treatment and 300 hours of community service. Judge Robert Ullman also stressed that she will not profit directly or indirectly from any media presentation or any discussion or dissemination of the facts of this case. Yu declined to give a statement, with her lawyer saying she was very distraught, according to the Boston Herald website. During the investigation, police had determined that she was physically, verbally, and psychologically abusive towards Mr. Urtula during their 18-month-long tumultuous relationship, Suffolk District Attorney Rachel Rowlands said back in October 2019. The abuse became more frequent, more powerful, and more demeaning in the days and hours leading up to Mr. Urtula's death, the attorney said. She said that the couple had exchanged more than 75,000 text messages in 2 months prior to Mr. Urtula's death. In her post, you urged Mr. Urtula to go kill himself and go die, the attorney said. She added that on 20 May, Yu was tracking Mr. Urtula's location and went to the Renaissance garage where he killed himself. Alright, and right here, I'm just gonna bring out a couple scriptures, revolving this topic. It says in Ecclesiastes chapter 7, verse 26, and I find more bitter than death the woman whose heart is snares and nets, and her hands is bands. Whoso pleaseth Yahweh shall escape her, but the sinner shall be taken by her. Yep. You definitely don't want to be in the clutches of a wicked woman, because, women are more emotional than men, and they tend to get, abusive and, verbally and even physically abusive as well. And they get protection by, the government, because this country upholds feminism, And then when you put a bitch in her fucking place and she realizes that she's a woman, that's when she wants to use her feminist power and try to, call Esau via the police system to pretty much get you arrested and shit like that. And also, they will pretty much get their fucking Captain Sable Simpson, their family, or a couple of friends they know, to come after you too as well. I'm just saying, that's pretty much how these wicked ass women get down. There's always a simp out there lurking to protect them, even if they don't even know them, trying to be a good Samaritan. Showing you how men really go out there wits for women. And I'm bringing that scripture out too. First Ezra chapter 4, verse 25, wherefore a man loveth his wife better than father or mother. Yea, many there be that have run out their wits for women and become servants for their sakes. Many also have perished, have erred and sinned for women. And pretty much like what that man did was he pretty much committed suicide. This man jumped to his death. That's how pissed off he was dealing with her. And she didn't even look like she was all that. She look all right. She don't, you know, she don't even look all that attractive at all. And pretty much for the most part, when it's coming to that guy, like, he's really a weak-minded individual, you know, to allow a woman to get used to that point, you know. And this is why you don't really go out your way to put in a woman on top of you, you know, on top of you. You know what I mean? Like, putting her in a pedestal and fucking uplifting her like she's supposed to be above you. That's that fucking Queen of Heaven spirit. And that shit is really wicked as hell. And that's the type of shit that happens when you put a woman above you like that. She ends up fucking treating you like shit. She ends up looking at you like you're a doormat. You know? And this guy, they mentioned that even in the span of 2 months, they shared about 75,000 text messages. I never heard of some shit like that before. Showing you that guy must have really been a simp or some shit. You know? And most likely that would, you know, they seem to be heathens, you know, for the most part. And going as far as committing suicide because of a female, that's like, you know, that's very weak-minded. But let me continue on with the lesson. Scripture in Ecclesiastes chapter 25 verse 13 says, give me any plague but the plague of the heart, any wickedness but the wickedness of a woman. And that shows you right there that you know, he has suffered from the wickedness of a woman. Because for her to be psychologically and physically abusive, meaning that she wasn't only, you know, insulting him through text messages and, you know, even verbally insulting him, she was actually like physically abusing him as well. And she admitted to it. And then the fucked up part about it overall is like, they allowed this bitch to, you know, after 2 years, they gave her probation with community service of 300 hours of community service. You know, instead of doing 10 years. And it really shows you how these women usually get away with certain murders that a lot of men don't usually get away with, which is kind of fucked up. I bet you if it was the man, they would have gave him a longer sentence. And they wouldn't give him parole probably at all, or they probably would have gave it to him, you know, like a couple years after or so. So yeah. And let me see. Scripture also mentions that I had rather dwell with a lion and a dragon than to keep house with a wicked woman. And that's pretty much what it feels like when you live with a wicked ass woman. It feels like you would rather be a homeless guy. You know, you would rather want to run off somewhere. You rather want to deal with being with, you know, wild ass animals that could potentially kill you than to deal with a wicked ass woman. That's what it feels like. Because I tell you, when it's coming to how wicked these women are, it's like they have, you know, no limits to how wicked they can get. And it almost feels like shit. They can do almost, they could go from 0 to 100 real quick because they're emotional, and just even beyond that, they could fucking do an infinity of wickedness, you know. Especially, the Israelite woman starting mostly with the so-called black woman. So you can only imagine this guy, if he was a so-called black woman, he probably would have committed suicide, quicker than ever. But I'm just gonna go on with the scriptures. That's why in Ecclesiastes 25 verse 22 says, verse 21 it says, stumble not at the beauty of a woman, and desire her not for pleasure. Well, let me go with verse 19. It says, all wickedness is but little to the wickedness of a woman, and let the portion of a sinner fall upon her. And verse 20 says, as the climbing up a sandy way is to the feet of the aged, so is a wife full of words to a quiet man. And when you hear that these women, they pretty much like, a lot of them are super talkative. They're supposed to be quiet, and they're only supposed to be allowed to pretty much speak when a man will want them to speak, But they want to have the first and the last words. They always want to basically run their big ass mouths, thinking that that they're on top of everyone. They got it all fucked up. Scriptures also say in Ecclesiastes chapter 26 verse 23, a wicked woman is given as a portion to a wicked man, but a godly woman is given to him that feareth the Lord. So that's why and the majority of this women, that's why a lot of brothers will say, like, majority of women will pretty much die because of that feminism shit that they have been fed by Esau. And pretty much you also got to keep in mind when it's coming to the nation of our people, 2/3, the majority of women make up to 2/3. And you already know, like, the heathen woman, they ain't gonna make it, regardless. So this truth doesn't apply to them. And for the most part, when it's coming to a lot of how these women are and shit like that, they learn from how Esau, the stupid shit that he teaches them about, feminism, and teaches them about toxic masculinity. So they're just used to and accustomed to treating a man like shit and having men to serve them. This is why you shouldn't go out your wits for a woman. This is why you shouldn't be trying to put a woman over you, because it's gonna make you feel like shit. At the end of the day, when you see those guys that out there scolding their woman, putting their woman in their place, that's pretty much what you're supposed to do. And you shouldn't, treat them like shit, or you shouldn't look at them like those guys are doing the wrong thing, when in fact they're actually doing the right thing. So, but I hope I made the lesson edifying. Not to give all glory, praise, honor to Adonai, Yahweh, Bashem, Shamalak, Yahweh, Bashem, Kakadash, to the honors of the apostles and elders, great millstone, peace, citation, of Falet, Yahweh, Bashem, Shabbat, Shalak, Rayam, Alawayam, Wako, Ayam, Wa, Ababa, Shalom.